Observing Malaysian politics, it often strikes me that it's not really the big pronouncements that reveal the most about us. It's more, well, it's the public reaction to these smaller, maybe symbolic acts, like a protest gesture. One small thing happens and boom, you see this huge divide. Some people are instantly outraged saying that's totally unacceptable, while others are like, no, that's perfectly valid dissent. It's that reaction, that public split, that tells you so much more than any official statement.
That is spot on. And we saw that perfectly, didn't we, with the news from yesterday? The arrest of Chegubard and a member from the youth wing of the Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party. It came right after that 726 anti-Anwar rally 3 days ago. It really highlights how the public response becomes the story, almost more than the event itself.
Exactly. So as we dig into this, I have to ask you listening, what are your first thoughts on this? Do you think these immediate, almost gut reactions to symbolic protests really capture the wider feeling in Malaysia?
Okay, so let's set the scene properly. We're talking about the 726 anti-Anwar rally from 3 days back. And the specific thing that caught a lot of attention, maybe the most controversial part, was participants hitting a human-shaped signboard of the prime minister.
A very visual, symbolic act.
That image definitely stuck with people.
It did. And then, directly following that, yesterday, we saw the arrests. Chegubard, who's the Malaysian United Indigenous Party Teluk Kemang division chief and also a member from the youth wing of the Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party. They were brought in, and the police cited quite a few laws, didn't they? Things like the Minor Offenses Act 1955, Section 14, the Penal Code, Section 504, the Communications and Multimedia Act 1998, Section 233, and even the Sedition Act 1948, Section 401, a whole list. Right, quite the list. But what's kind of interesting, or maybe curious, is how long they were held. Chegubard was only remanded for 1 day, and the other individual wasn't remanded at all. Both expected to be out today, apparently.
Right.
Makes you wonder about the weight behind those charges, initially at least.
Well, regardless of the shore remand, there was an immediate show of support outside the police headquarters. About 30 people showed up at the Dang Wangi District Police Headquarters, led by figures like Muhammad Hilman Idham, the Malaysian United Indigenous Party Youth Wing Chief, and president of the Malay Dignity Movement. They were clearly there protesting, calling it suppression of dissent, framing it as, political payback.
And the lawyers and politicians involved, they weren't quiet either, were they? Chegubard's lawyer, Modra Afiq, came out quite strongly. He used that phrase basically accusing the government of settling scores after the rally. His argument was, look, they were told the rally could proceed, maybe even facilitated, but then came the arrest right after.
Yeah, and Rafiaq really pushed the point that the rally itself was peaceful. He stressed, no injuries, no damage to property. He even disputed the amount of rubbish left behind, saying it was way less than the official 20 tons figure. For him, it was just clear-cut political intimidation, pure and simple. Still happening.
And then you had Muhammad Hilman Idham, the Malaysian United Indigenous Party Youth Wing Chief, adding his voice. He framed the whole rally as a response, basically saying it happened because the prime minister hadn't delivered on promises made before the election. He specifically mentioned the failure to reform the Sedition Act and the Communications and Multimedia Act. Kind of ironic, he suggested that the PM was now, quote, hiding behind these very laws.
And adding to that, Syed Hassan from the Malay Dignity Movement also defended Chegubard. He asked, well, why single out Chegubard? He wasn't the only one there. And his point was, it was just a human-shaped signboard, a piece of cardboard, essentially, not a real person. So why, he asked, this level of reaction from the authorities seemed excessive to him.
Right. Now, this is where, for me at least, it gets really interesting. When you actually look at the public reaction, especially online, it's not just the usual political camps arguing. What you see is this whole commentary bubbling up about protest itself, what's okay, what's not okay. It feels less about the letter of the law and more about society's own sort of unwritten rules for expressing yourself.
That's exactly it. You dive into those netizen comments and the tone, wow, it's often very sarcastic, highly critical, and honestly, in many cases, people seem genuinely pleased about the arrest. You get comments like, level pembangkang paling lembab dalam sejarah negara, basically calling the opposition the weakest ever, saying they have no real ideas, just stirring trouble. And ending with, memang adan ukeng tidur dalam lokap, essentially, you deserve to sleep in the lockup. There's a real sense of satisfaction there for some.
And it gets harsher too, doesn't it? Some comments are incredibly direct. Things like, Kalo bolilama sikit bagi sikit pelajaran, melampo sangat, wishing they'd be held longer, to teach them a lesson,
Yeah.
calling it excessive. Or even really dark stuff like, no lokap saja cepat manpos, wishing for them to be locked up and, well, worse, just blunt mockery. Panan moka kamu. Serves you right.
Exactly. And others frame it in terms of societal harmony. Like, lokap saja manusia, macam nita kada guna satu senpun ut keharmonian dimsia. Just lock them up. People like this are useless for Malaysian harmony. It's a strong moral judgment.
It's quite intense. I mean, even criticism of the police comes from an unexpected angle sometimes.
Right. That comment saying, PDRM sila lebih profesional, asking the Royal Malaysia Police to be more professional, but meaning tougher. Jin, biarkan pegwami ini perlecehkan kerja Anda. Don't let the lawyer mock your work. Kami mahu musibah ini disimpan ke dalam. We want this troublemaker kept inside. Atas perbuatan kurang ajar dan berlawanan jibin budaya dan tuntutan agama kita, for rude behavior against our culture and religion, it's a call for more punishment, not less.
And the name calling. It's pretty wild.
Absolutely. The labels fly thick and fast. King Mamak, Chikiro Musibat, which is like troublemaking teacher, Tuktak Guru Alono, that sarcastic term, and even crude stuff like Gengtibay Bontot Goya Kita. All these aren't political critiques. They're personal insults meant to degrade.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people seem to be looking at it through a moral lens, too.
Yes, definitely. Comments like, Himpunan turun Anwar banyak memburukkan paspun dari segi akhlak dan tindakan. Saying the rally damaged the opposition's moral image, exposed their flaws. Or another one pointing out, apa yang dapat dilihat ialah akhlak dan moral yang tak elok. What was seen was bad character and morals. And connecting it directly to future votes, ini akan membuat pengundi atas pagar, akan menarik sokongan semasa PRU 16 nanti. Saying this display will make swing voters pull back support in the next election. It's all about the look of it.
In putting all that together, what really stands out, and this is maybe the key takeaway from the online chatter, is that hardly anyone in those top comments is actually talking about the hue, the evil laws themselves, or about the fine lines of freedom of assembly. The focus is almost entirely on the act, hitting that human-shaped signboard. Was that okay? Was that justified?
Precisely. The performance of the protest, the symbolic violence, seems to just swamp everything else. It drowns out the underlying message, the arguments about the laws, the reasons for the protest in the first place.
So what does that really signal? It suggests, quite strongly, I think, that for a big chunk of the public, the way a protest looks, especially if it involves anything resembling violence, even symbolic, that becomes the whole story.
It really does. It makes you think about other times, doesn't it? Like those Sabah University students burning the effigy of the deputy PM years ago. Or imagine, hypothetically, during the White Flag movement, if someone had done something similar with a signboard of Najib Razak or Muhyiddin Yassin, would the reaction have been the same? It forces you, the listener, to ask, is it really the act itself people find offensive? Or is it who the target of the act is? That seems crucial here.
That's a really powerful question, and it leads to another thought, doesn't it?
It does. It raises this very important point about reform. If public opinion comes down so hard against certain forms of protest, almost regardless of what the law actually says, does that maybe inadvertently just take the pressure off the government to reform those very laws everyone talks about? I mean, why would they push hard to change laws like the Sedition Act or the CMA if society seems generally fine with using them, or even wants harsher application based on these kinds of subjective reactions to protest styles?
It's like a feedback loop almost. Public reaction reinforcing the status quo, even if people theoretically want reform.
Could be. It suggests the public mood might actually be hindering the legal changes some activists are fighting for.
So when we look back at this whole incident, the rally, the signboard, the arrests, and especially this intense public reaction, it might be more than just another political flare-up. This could actually be playing a role in defining or maybe redefining those unwritten rules about what's acceptable expression, what's acceptable protest here in Malaysia.
I think that's right. We're in this space where the lines for protests are constantly being negotiated. And it seems public sentiment, maybe even more than legislation sometimes, is drawing those lines. So what does that ultimately mean for civil discourse, for democratic expression going forward? It really leaves us with something to think about. Are we collectively as a society shaping the boundaries of our own freedom through how we react to these moments of political theater?